So, who is Mr. Jonathan Wright? He is a financial advisor and director of expansion at Transamerica Financial Advisors Incorporated. He is also currently a licensed financial professional and registered representative with more than 10 years of financial coaching, mortgage consulting, business strategy consulting, and financial analysis experience with corporate, private, and government organizations. He utilized his financial background and analytical skills to resolve complex issues that ultimately resulted in significant cost savings and increased profit margins for corporate and government organizations. Now, his focus is on using his financial background and knowledge to help individuals reach their financial goals, create a legacy, and I really like that, creating a legacy, and generating wealth. Also, and I saved this part for last, Mr. Wright is a graduate of the Hampton University with a bachelor's in finance, my alma mater, y'all, from yesterday, who caught that. And also, he received his executive MBA from the University of Maryland Smith Business School of Business. So, with that being said, please join me in welcoming Mr. Wright. You're on mute.
Let me get off mute here. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for this opportunity. This is amazing, amazing event and much needed in our community. I wish, we've had this information passed down for generations and generations, but unfortunately, a lot of times the information is not shared. So we need to make sure that we have these type of events and we have as much participation as possible because we all want to grow and learn together. So what I'm going to speak about today is really near and dear to my heart, and it's about money. And a lot of times people, they learn the hard way. If you ask your parents, they went through this school called the School of Hard Knocks. And it's a very expensive school to enroll in. And you don't want to learn the hard way. You want to learn from wisdom, and you want to learn from people who have gone there, been down those roads before. And then also you want to learn from people who are successful today. And that video that you just showed was amazing. I really believe in positive affirmations. I mean, that's very key and critical. It brought me through college, just staying positive and being around other positive people who are going places. Your affiliations and the information that you feed in your mind is so critical to your success. So you want to be mindful of that as you enter the next phase of your life. And that's for adults as well. And so really looking forward to sharing some information that I think is actionable, that you can utilize today. You can also increase your knowledge, and at least pique your interest so that you can do more research, because there's only so much that we can cover in this short amount of time. And so really excited to dive in. Actually, the first video I was going to show you was very similar to that last one with the positive affirmations. So I'm just going to post it so everybody sees it. But one individual that I follow, like on YouTube, social media, is Eric Thomas. So ET. So if anybody has heard of him or has not heard of him, please look him up. I actually met him at the National Harbor probably a couple years ago, and just very inspiring gentleman that provides positive affirmations and is great for young people as well. So we're going to jump right in. I'm going to share my screen with you. But I want to make sure that as we're going through, if you have questions, put it in the chat. And at the end, I'm going to open it up so that anybody can ask a question at that time. So if you could turn your screens on so I can see everybody, that would be helpful. And if you can see my screen, please give me the thumbs up. All right, fantastic. So one of the first things, as before we jump into, money and what's money all about, the first thing is you got to understand, what is your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? So if you really start thinking about a maze, when you're trying to solve a maze, where's the best place to start? Is it at the beginning? Or is it at the end? And you can go off mute for this if somebody has a perspective on this. I'm real curious about when you're trying to tackle a problem, and we'll use maze as an example, a maze. You start at the beginning, or do you start at the end? Anybody put it in the chat? Or have
Yes, there's several people who said the end.
the end? Okay. So can somebody tell me why you would want to start at the end to solve a maze? You don't have to be shy. There's no wrong or, right. It's just your perspective. So if you think about it.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes, please. Please, Alex.
All right. So I feel like once you're at the end, it's kind of easier to get out of it because at the beginning, it seems like a lot. But say if you start backwards and you start at the end, it might just seem easier getting out of it.
I like that. I agree with that. Anybody else have a perspective? Thanks, Alex.
There's several in the chat. One individual said, I know what I want to accomplish, but start at the beginning and work through one step at a time. And then someone else said, ideally, you want to see where you're going to have an understanding where to start.
That was insightful. That was good. Both of those answers were good. But starting at the end, now you can kind of figure out a game plan, right? Because you already know how the end is going to look. You have the end in sight. So you can start planning strategically. All right, how do I actually meet this objective if I'm starting from square one? I know where I want to end. I know that the road is going to be challenging, but sometimes if you start without the end in sight, it can be overwhelming. It can be stressful. It can be you're going down these wrong paths every turn and you're thinking you're going the right direction, but you hit a roadblock. Then you got to circle back. Then you got to go back and start again. So starting at the end, think about that from your career and from your life perspective. Think about what do you want the end to look like? In fact, I was just in Philadelphia with my financial advisory team, and we just got back this afternoon. And one of the things we talked about, and it brought a lot of us to tears, is that we wrote our eulogy. We actually wrote it, and I never was challenged to do that in any group exercise. And they were like, what would people say about you? Like, what would you accomplish? Do you want to be forgotten? Do you want to leave a legacy? Like, what does that legacy look like? So it really forced us to get out of our comfort zones and think about the end versus the beginning. And I tell you, if you go through that exercise, it's so powerful, and share it with a loved one. Because it is so that they can see how you want your life to live. And then it also allows you to see, I have a lot of things I need to accomplish. So if I want to accomplish all these things to get to the end, there's a lot of things I need to do now to start putting things in place. So one of those things you can do is create a vision board. We're very visual people. And so a vision board can be used on PowerPoint. My daughter, we make the kids do one every year. They do it on PowerPoint. You go to magazines and clip out clippings and create it. And it tells your story about what your vision actually looks like. Very powerful exercise. And then also research professions that you wish to pursue. So what kind of profession do you want to be in? A lot of times people enter college and they enter a profession and they end up switching altogether. They're not even no longer doing anything related to what they majored in. Maybe because they didn't start with the end in sight, right? But sometimes your interests change as you evolve and you grow, and that's okay as well. So those are some of the things you want to start thinking about, is doing some major hardcore research on where you want to go. More importantly, how much are you going to make in that profession? So you can pick this profession that you love to do, but then it turns out you're not making no money. And then your lifestyle that you want to live is completely different than the profession that you're in. So you got to have some alignment with where you want to live, how you want to live, with the profession that you're going to pursue. So that income trajectory is so critical. So one of the things that I study was Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant. So it's a book. He wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you have not read that, you want to write that down and put that on your list of reading. Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, but he has another book called The Cash Flow Quadrant. And it's really, he breaks it down so simply. There's 4 ways to produce income. You have linear income versus leverage and residual income. But then the 4 buckets, everybody falls into 1 or 2 or multiple buckets. So you got the employee mindset. You go to job, they teach you to go to school, get good grades, get a good job. Hopefully you can retire at some point. Pensions are going away. Hopefully you get Social Security. If you're young and on this call, don't bank on it. Not guaranteed, right? And then so now the whole onus is on you to prepare for your financial future. That means you have to take all the risk. And so don't count on government assistance. If it's there, fantastic. But if not, it's all going to be on you and how you plan. And it begins with the end in sight again, and how you plan your career, your trajectory, and your habits. But in employee mindset, there's no leverage. So you're creating a situation where you're trading time for dollars. The more time you work, the more dollars. Unless you're salaried, then it doesn't matter. They work you to the death and you make the same amount. And then again, they're going to tell you how much you're worth. So if you think you're worth more, you're going to be frustrated because they're going to say, no, you're worth X amount. This is the contract you signed to work for us. So you're going to work for this amount no matter how hard you work. Hopefully you get some promotions along the way. Then you got self-employed. You own a job. These are individuals that are entrepreneurs typically, but they're still trading time for dollars. So that time for dollars, now you're trading typically more time for quote unquote, hopefully more dollars. But now you have more flexibility because you own that job. You're self-employed. Then you have business owners. You own a system. The system is going to work regardless if you're there or not. You don't have to put in time for vacation time like an employee. Business owner, you take time off, but your business is still thriving and working because you're leveraging a system and you have a network of people that are working with you, which transferring a business into more dollars. It's scalable. So that's where you see 95% of the wealth is with business owners. Then if you look at investors, you own investments. So that can be real estate. That could be cryptocurrency. That can be stocks. That can be bonds. So there's a plethora of different types of investments that you can buy that are going to increase in value with the market. And so when you're sleeping, your money is making money for you. Your money is always working for you while you're sleeping. So you're typically going to be in 2 of these buckets. Most people are employed, or they might be an investor through their 401k, which is the company that you work for will offer some investment plan with some tax benefits that you can contribute to. So you want to start that as soon as possible. You know, self-employed, you got to set up your own retirement plans. Business owners, same thing. So the B and I is where you see billionaires. Billionaires, multimillionaires are going to be in B and I. Self-employed, you're going to see some millionaires there, but they're going to be working very extremely hard to get there. Employees, very rare, unless you've been working there 20, 30 years and you saved a ton of money. So you can still get there in all of these buckets, but the higher probability is going to be in the business owner and investor side. Any questions about that in the chat or comments or thoughts? Okay. So, you know, the thing about school is fantastic. You want to get good grades and all those things. But they prepare you how to make money. But it doesn't prepare you how to grow, save, and protect your money. 2 different things. So it's going to show you how to interview well, how to look the part, how to speak professional, communicate well. But then after you make the money, it's not going to show you what to do with that money. And that's one of the most key things. I've seen people work 20, 30 years and have nothing to show for it. They worked their whole entire life and made millions of dollars and haven't saved a dime. And I scratch my head and I'm like, how is this possible that you've made all this money and haven't saved anything or have anything to show for, no legacy to pass on, nothing? And it's because of lack of education. So if you look at this, are today's students prepared to make financial decisions? New study finds U.S. high schools are missing the mark on personal finance. Only 16.4% of U.S. students are required to take a personal finance course to graduate high school. That is crazy to me. Virginia's one. So if you live in Virginia, you know, Maryland's on there, New Jersey, and there's more states that are adding these programs. But you have to make sure as a student that you're actively seeking this information. Because if you're not, you're going to miss the boat. You're going to graduate. Congratulations. You're going to go to college. Congratulations. You're going to get a job, and then you're not going to know what to do. So you got to have a game plan, but you got to understand how you want to live your life. What does your lifestyle look like? My daughter's 9. She already told me she wants to be extremely wealthy. She's like, Dad, I want to be rich. She's like, I want to live a certain lifestyle. She's like, I want to have this house, this many rooms, this many kids. She got it all planned out. But I was like, well, how are you going to get there? And so we started building a game plan. So now she's intentional going to 4th grade, knowing that her grades now and the way that she gets good grades now is going to propel her in the future. But more importantly, what does she do with her money? One of the things that gets people in trouble because of a lack of financial literacy is the D word, debt. Debt will take you down and prevent you from reaching all of your goals. It has a significant impact not only on your financial future, but on your health and on your relationships. Debt is the #1 reason for divorce. So one of the things for young people before you get married, you want to check their credit score, you want to check their debt, you want to see what they got, and you want to be going into the conversation saying, I got a 700 credit score, which we're going to talk about. I got no debt or minimal debt, and I got savings. You want to bring something to the table. And so debt is impacting all of us. And right now you have something called inflation. So if you don't know what inflation is, you want to research it because it's impacting all of your parents' money. So the cost of goods and services are increasing significantly. So therefore, that means it costs more to fill up your gas tank, costs more to go buy groceries, costs more to go to school. Healthcare has increased. Everything has gone up in cost, but everybody's income hasn't gone up at the same percentage. So therefore, you have a deficit. And so now to buy the things that you want, what do you have to do? You have to buy it on credit cards. And so there's good and bad ways to use credit cards, and we're going to talk about that. But if you look at this, a record high student debt load is beginning to weigh on millennials. 45% of students regret taking out as much loans as they did. Got to take out student loans because for whatever reason, the parents maybe had not prepared or saved well. You went to an extremely expensive college. You didn't get scholarships because you didn't do what you were supposed to do in school. So there's a lot of ways that you can accumulate debt. 76% of millennials lack basic financial knowledge. 70% of millennials are stressed and anxious about saving for retirement. 34% of millennials live with their parents. So the question is, do you want to live with your parents the rest of your life? I know the parents on here are probably saying, no. We want you to be independent, functioning adults, giving back to your community, and it starts now. Time is your biggest asset. Whoever used time the most effective is going to win. So think about that. Time and savings, you're going to be a multimillionaire. If we have more time, I will show you some numbers that you don't even have to save that much. It's just more so how long are you saving and how consistent you are over time, and then making smart investment decisions. And it's phenomenal. Everybody has an opportunity to be a multimillionaire if that's your goal. So uses of debt, and then I'm going to play a video real quickly to really illustrate this. So the impact on your credit. So your credit report is like your financial report card. So, you get your report card in school, you get A's and B's, things of that nature, which is fantastic. But as adults, you get something called a credit report, which as an adult, financial report card that shows how well you are a manager of money. The higher your score, the better manager of money you are and controlling of debt. The lower your score, that means that you have some work to do and you probably need to seek some help, some guidance. So we're going to talk about that, but to create a credit report, a credit score, you need to have some debt. So starting out, you got to have some debt to create a history for them to grade you on. So it's good to have no debt, but if you have no history, you have no credit report, then that's going to prevent you from doing a whole host of things that you want to do, including buying a home. And real estate is going to be a phenomenal investment in your portfolio. It's one of the best ways to generate wealth. So I'm going to play this video for you just to kind of give you a sense of what credit cards can do to you, but what it can do for you as well, and what it does to your credit report. Give me
Meet
thumbs up.
Jasmine.
Hear this.
Jasmine is a college student attending State University. Like many college students, Jasmine has a lot of things she needs to buy: books, laundry baskets, food, and so on. And she can pay for those things with two types of money: debit or credit. Debit is money that comes from a personal bank account. Credit is money that is lent to you by your bank. For example, let's say Jasmine has been using a credit card. Each time Jasmine uses the card to buy something, say a $100 textbook, her bank is loaning her the money. While that sounds nice, be warned, the bank isn't giving Jasmine this money for free. They expect her to pay a certain amount of money each month, called interest, if she doesn't totally pay off her balance by the due date. As you can imagine, this can get very expensive very quickly, especially when factoring in the high annual interest rates, or APRs, that are charged by these companies. However, there is a solution to this rather scary problem. As long as Jasmine always pays off her balance in full by the monthly due date, she'll never pay a cent of interest. Jasmine is shocked and thrilled, but still isn't quite sold on credit cards. After all, with all their flaws, are they really worth using? The short answer, as long as you avoid running up a balance, definitely. So why is that? Well, free money for starters. Most credit cards offer their users rewards, like cashback or airline miles, each time they make a purchase. For example, let's say Jasmine's credit card comes with 2% cash back. That means if Jasmine spends $500 per month, then at the end of the month, she'll automatically get $10 back, no questions asked. Then, if that wasn't good enough, responsibly using a credit card also allows Jasmine to build a great credit score. This is a calculated number between 300 and 850 that summarizes your credit history, covering everything from your payment history to the age and status of your accounts. While we'll teach you more about your credit score, including how to get and improve it, in our next video, Credit Scores and Reports 101, just know for now that most credit cards actually require a credit score of at least 600, plus at least $15,000 in annual income and a reasonable debt payment to income ratio, generally below 36%. However, thankfully for Jasmine, who lacks both credit history and a full-time job, she shouldn't have a problem getting a student credit card. In fact, the online application will take all of 5 minutes. She'll just have to be a full-time student of at least 18 years of age, with either a small amount of income, like from a part-time job, or a credit-worthy cosigner. However, at this point we have to say, be careful. Taking on a cosigner is no small matter. The account is still in your name, so any credit mistakes are on you and your cosigner. Plus, your cosigner is even liable for any of your missed payments. If Jasmine isn't quite ready for that level of responsibility, she can instead be added as an authorized user to her family's account. Not only will this allow her to get her own credit card, but in a few short months, the credit bureaus will treat her parents' credit score as her own. Sounds pretty great, right? Well, this strategy isn't a cure-all. Even though Jasmine isn't liable for payments on the account, her parents still are. Plus, many lenders will want to see you successfully handling credit on your own before giving you a major loan. Hopefully you and Jasmine now understand the basics of credit cards. Be sure to watch our next video, which covers everything you need to know about credit scores, and be sure to check out our website, where you can find
You're on mute.
I'm going to pause there and give everybody an opportunity to ask some questions or put it in the chat. They covered a lot of good information there. A lot of pertinent information. We're going to make sure you get these videos so you can watch them again. But definitely want you to make sure you understand that concept. It's a double-edged sword with credit cards. Good uses of debt, and then there's bad uses of debt. So good uses of debt are any debts that are going to appreciate in value, like real estate. A lot of people take out loans for their house because they can't afford to buy it outright. And so that's an appreciating asset. You know, so you want to look at that versus buying credit cards to buy those new Jordans, you know, or buy some frivolous things, a car, for example. You know, it's a depreciating asset, but a lot of times you got to use debt for that. So one question I'm seeing here, how did they say you can get the credit score of your if you're a co-signer or parent? So essentially there, your parent would be, you know, can be an authorized user. They can co-sign for you. And that will help you in terms of at least getting some type of credit history. But again, to get any big type of loan, like a mortgage or auto loan, they're going to want to see that you personally have credit in your name and have shown a history of having, you know, some responsibility with that money and with that debt. So definitely want to do your research on that and make sure that whoever is on board to co-sign for you understands the implications of that, right? So that's super, super important. Dr. Murray, I've just switched to my video. So if you could read any other questions that came up.
Sure. One question is, would you recommend to get a credit card at the age of 18?
I would, if your goal is to eventually buy a home, then you're going to need to build credit history as soon as you can. Because that's one of the largest components of your score is, you know, paying on time, having a history of paying on time, and how long you've had the accounts open. So if you don't have any accounts open, that clock doesn't start ticking until you actually open an account. So yes, in that regard, if that's your game plan and you are responsible. So you got to be in a position mentally to handle that responsibility and maybe just keep the credit line very small, like $250, $500, so you don't go crazy on it, right? So you got to think about that as well. What are your spending habits? Also, I highly encourage you to create a budget first. See what income is coming in, look at all your expenses, and see what your discretionary is. Where's the money going to come from that pay off that debt? Otherwise, do not charge your card. If you got no money coming in and no way to pay off that debt, then that's just going to hurt your credit score even more. Dr. Murray, I think you might be on mute, but.
Yes, thank you. There's another good question in the chat. How early can you invest in the stock market? Great question.
Oh, well, I mean, I can tell you right now, if your parents, and we're going to talk about that, it's called an UPMA account. You can start as early as your parents open an account on your behalf. They'll be the owner and you'll be the beneficiary. And then once you get of age of 18, then it will relinquish to you. I know my daughter, she started investing when she was 6 years old. And she actually has her own account and she picks her own stocks. I do not pick her stocks for her. I put the money in. She just has to give me her explanation in theory for why she wants to buy it. If it's satisfactory, then she can go ahead and buy the stock. So you can't just be gambling, you know, with buying stocks, but you want to have some type of, you know, perspective on why you're buying a particular stock, but you can start as early as your parents will open an account for you. So speaking of stocks, one of the ways you're going to make money in stocks is called compound interest. So if you don't take anything away from what we talk about today, the rule 72 is probably the most critical. And there's a video. We don't have a lot of time to go through that video, but I'm going to share it with all of you to watch it. But I'm going to give you the concept. So the rule of 72 was derived by a smart gentleman called Albert Einstein. I'm sure everybody's heard of Einstein. Right? Sharp individual, came up with this a concept of compounding your money. And it's phenomenal. And this is how wealthy people get wealthier. So let's run through an example. Say you earned 1% on your money. So in the bank, now because of inflation, you can actually earn 1% on your money if you have it in the correct savings account. We call it APY, annual percentage yield. Every bank account, checking account, savings account has an APY. You just have to look it up to see what yours is. The average right now, you can go on a site called bankrate.com and you can find the highest paying savings accounts in the country. And the average I've seen is 1.2 to 1.5%. But just say you make 1% on your money. Excuse me, 1% divided by the number 72, that's why they call it the rule of 72, will give you how many years it takes for your money to double. So if you divide that, then you're going to get 72 years. It takes 72 years for your money to double. So if you're 29 years old with 10,000 in the bank and you're earning 1% on that 10,000, to double that 10,000 is going to take you 72 years, which brings you to 101 years old. You now have 20,000. Congratulations, but you're not alive to enjoy it. Does that sound like a good deal to you? But where's most people money sitting? In the bank, making no money for them. It's safe, it's FDIC insured up to 250,000, but you're not making any money. So this is great to have your money in a bank account for emergency funds, for short-term obligations, to pay your bills, but for investments, terrible investment. 4%, that means most mortgages, if you're earning 4% or paying 4% on your mortgage, it takes 18 years to pay off that debt. But most mortgages are 30 years. So that means that a 4% mortgage is going to take you, you're going to pay double for your home. $500,000 home now costs you $1 million. But earning 4% on your money is going to take you 18 years for your money to double. So now you go from 29 to 47 to age 65. Now you got $40,000 in the account. 6% at 65, you now have 80,000. 10% at 65, you now have 320,000. This is very impactful because the rate of return is so critical to you building wealth. And where you're going to get a rate of return is in the stock market. So you got to be invested in risk assets, meaning you're going to have to take some element of risk to actually reach your goal. And so 10% might be aggressive for some, but over the last 3 years, if you look at the last 3 years, not counting this year, the market was over 20% in the last 3 years. And each year, 20, 23, 25% SPY, which is Standard & Poor's index. So 10%, you exceeded that. But now this year, we're down, 12 to 15%, even though we're coming back in the short term. But over the long term, you average 8% rate of return on your money since the 1920s. So you got to be invested, and your biggest asset, again, is time and compound interest. Those two things will make you wealthy. Dr. Murray, please stop me on my time, because then I'll keep moving. But in terms of this slide here, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr.
Sorry, you have 10 minutes.
10 minutes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at this slide, this is more so for the parents, but as a student, you really need to think about these different stages. You need to start thinking about beyond high school, beyond college, because life is going to happen, and either it's going to happen with or without you. Like, are you going to be ready or you're not going to be ready? And so stage one, if you look at this, going to college, paying off student loans, tuition and books, food, those are taking Spanish, living expenses, all those things are going to be costs that you're going to incur before you graduate. Paying off your student loans happens after you graduate. But one of the things that you can do to minimize your debt, Dr. Murray might touch on this, is through scholarships. And scholarships are going to be critical to you reducing your debt load so that you can focus on building when you get out of school. And one of the things you can do to help your parents out is get the best grades you can get. Do the community service, do those things in the community, do those things that are going to make you more marketable to get into a school that you want to go to. That's going to prepare you for the future, but also pay for it. Stage 2 is now you're thinking about starting a family, wedding, starting a business, buying a home, buying a car. These things are critical and they all cost money, and a lot of money, might I add. So you want to start thinking about that, because that's going to increase your debt load if you don't prepare properly for that. At some point you're going to travel, you want financial freedom, you want to give to your favorite charity, and you want to retire. Retirement is your ultimate goal. Those that retire well, they saved well, they did well in their working years, they had somebody guiding them, they got them to a great place. And then lastly, the 2 things you can guarantee in life, you're going to pay taxes and you're going to die. Nobody wants to talk about that, but those 2 things are for certain. And so you want to prepare for that, and you do that through life insurance. And so you want to get that as soon as you can in terms of getting life insurance, because that is the number one way to build wealth and create a legacy for your family. So you want to talk this over with your family to make sure you have adequate life insurance, especially if you're a parent, you have children, and even get life insurance on your child, because that is where you can create significant tax-free growth within your life insurance policy that will serve you well in retirement, and also help pay for the down payment on your house, to buy a car, a wedding. So you want to get that as soon as possible so you can get that tax-free growth. And that's a whole nother class in itself, just how to use life insurance properly to create an immediate estate, which is tax-free. I'm not going to go through all of these in detail. We'll save that for a future class, but take a snapshot of these things, because these are what you need to study and understand how they work. Savings account, self-explanatory. Most people know how that works. Savings bonds. You want to research savings bonds. 529 plans. These vary by state, but they're an excellent way to pay for college, but it can only be used for education. So if your child does not go to college, maybe they're going to a trade school, maybe they're going to be a full-time entrepreneur, maybe they get a full scholarship, things of that nature. So you only can use the 529 plan money for educational expenses, qualified educational expenses. Some states have prepaid, some people have the invest. Prepaid means you're going to pay a set amount to go to a specific school in your state, typically a state school. And then that will pay for it if you just make that payment that they state pay, and they'll pay the difference regardless of the cost in the future. So you're limited in terms of the school you can go to, but it's going to be paid for. And the invest option gives you more flexibility. You can invest in the stock market, in different mutual funds and things of that nature. That money will grow with the stock market, but you can only use it for educational expenses, and there's an element of risk. But now you can go to any school that you want and even use it for grad school. You can also give it to a blood relative if that child, gets a full ride. Then you can also defer to a blood relative as well. Life insurance. There's a book called The Power of Xero. I highly encourage your parents to read it, for you to read it, but it shows you how to have a tax-free retirement by David McKnight, The Power of Xero. Talks all about how to use life insurance to buy real estate, to retire, to have a pension. It's a beautiful vehicle that can be used extremely well for your children because of time.
Hey, Jonathan.
Yes.
There's a question related to life insurance. A
Okay.
student asked, how old do you have to be to get life insurance?
I got my daughters when she was 6 months old. So as soon as you are born, hopefully your parents understand how this works. If not, they're seeking a financial professional to guide them through this. But it is a phenomenal tool. You want to get it as soon as you can. Why? Because the cost of insurance is based off of your age and your health. And when are you the healthiest? When you're young. You're young, now therefore the cost of insurance is peanuts, and therefore you can stack money in your life insurance policy, creating your own personal bank that you have access to anytime you need it. College, down payment on the house, wedding, retirement, car. Phenomenal way, and it's all tax-free. Beautiful. Last one is investing. So UPMA and UGMA. And so we won't go too much in detail, but these are ways that you can invest for your children. Your grandparents can even invest and put money into these accounts for you. And you can grow money and invest in different stocks, mutual funds, even real estate and crypto and art and different types of investments as well within these vehicles. So you want to work with a financial professional that can guide you and set these up properly for you and help you invest it properly. But these are usually the strategies that you want to deploy for your child's future, but it also depends on your discretionary income. How much money do you actually have to invest, save for your children? That's where budgeting comes into play. So I'll pause there. I know I gave a lot of information, but I want to open it up for any questions, and then we'll have more of these discussions for sure on these different topics. As you see, I had a ton of slides. And unfortunately, I can't share them with everybody, the slides, because they still have to be approved for the public to display. But we can have more of these conversations in the future in terms of setting up future events. But take a snapshot of this right here, this slide. This will kind of give you a general overview of the different areas that you want to focus on as you're building your financial future: cash flow, emergency fund, debt management, proper protection, that's your long-term care, your life insurance, your disability insurance, your annuities, you're building wealth, outpacing inflation, and lastly, preserving wealth through estate planning. So some of these are a little complex for someone just starting out, but at a very minimum, as you're starting out, these first three, you need to have those a solid understanding of cash flow, emergency fund, and debt management. Here's my information, my QR code. If you want to schedule an appointment with me, if you want to schedule another event, workshop, things of that nature, I'll be happy to do it. Next month's Life Insurance Awareness Month. So we're going to be doing a big presentation on that life insurance and how to use it effectively, how wealthy individuals use it, where you're protected from lawsuits, child support, and bankruptcy. And I mind you, Donald Trump's one of the largest holder of these products. So wealthy people understand how these things work, so should you. So thank you for your time. Open up for any questions if we have time. And otherwise, have a blessed day. I appreciate your time.
All right, I have time for maybe one, maybe two questions. Let's see. I know there were a couple of questions earlier. Someone said, I bought a Roth IRA and just got a credit card. Do you think that is enough for now while I'm in college?
You're off to a good start. I will say that for a Roth IRA, typically you need earned income. So that must mean you have a part-time job at the school or you have some type of earned income. Roth IRA is phenomenal. For those who don't know what that is, that's a retirement account that allows you to save your money tax-free. You can invest in a lot of different stocks, mutual funds, exchange-traded funds, different types of investments. And that money will grow tax-free. You can't touch it till 59 and a half, so it's strictly for retirement. Unless you want to buy a home, then there's some stipulations where they allow you to pull the money out prior to without a 10% penalty and taxes. But to avoid taxes, a phenomenal tool. So I would say, yes, you're off to a great start. Definitely make sure you don't run up a balance on that credit card. You pay it off in full every single month, build credit over time, and you're off to a great start. So I would say, yes, if your discretionary income doesn't allow you to do anything more than that, then I would say you're off to a great start. The only other thing that is life insurance, but getting the proper life insurance that will grow tax-free. So definitely consult a financial advisor to set it up properly for you.
And the last question we have time for is, could you elaborate on the difference between a savings bond and a savings account?
Okay, that's good. Savings account is going to grow based off the interest, the annual percentage yield that the bank is offering. So every bank has a different APY. That means what they're going to pay you for you depositing your hard-earned money into their bank. But I would tell you right now, what they're doing with your money is they're investing in getting a much higher interest rate than what they're paying you. So they're making what they call the spread. So it's a fantastic business model to be in. They take all the deposits in and they pay you less than 1% typically. And then they're going to make 8, 10, whatever percent because they're investing the money. But it's safe, it's secure, and it's accessible. It's liquid. Savings bond typically can work really well if you get the right type of savings bond. You can get typically a higher interest rate than you get at the bank. However, it does fluctuate, and you can, depending on what type of savings bond you get, you could lose, money, your principal, some principal, but they're typically very secure, especially if it's backed by the federal government. Those are extremely, if you go corporate savings bonds, then you're taking a little bit more risk because it's based on how the performance of that particular company. But if you're doing the federal government, there's fantastic bonds you can get. It's a great rate of return in this environment, high inflation environment. So you want to look at both. However, if you had to choose between those two, I would probably say a mix between them, but then I would look at investments. Strongly advise looking at investments to get a much higher rate of return, especially if you're young.